Good evening. Here we are at Tmuna Theater, one of my favorite spots in Tel Aviv. The theater has been closed for the last 2 months, and this seemed like a good time to sneak in here while there's no audiences or artists and give you an inside look at this very important cultural institution. Now, in the coming weeks, Israel will slowly return from one of the strangest periods in modern history. Businesses will reopen one after the other, based on what is deemed most essential by our newly sworn-in government. This theater will be among the last organizations to return to operations. That is because theaters are deemed to be non-essential to our everyday lives. I've been thinking a lot about what is essential with all this spare time we've had on our hands. When I was in the White House, we brought in a lot of performances. Now, that wasn't a life or death issue. No one would have died if we hadn't had shows there. But to me, it was very important to show Americans and people all over the world that it is our right, our duty, and our privilege as members of a cultivated society to consume the arts. Culture is our key to enlightenment. Culture. It's an unusual word, isn't it? When you think about it, where does that word even come from? If you have a throat ache, the doctor will send you to get a throat culture. In Hebrew, I believe that's called a mishtah garon, right? And if you have a bladder infection, you'll have a urine culture. If something's bothering you, you'll have heart palpitations, you'll get a blood culture. In all of these tests, a few of your cells, are popped onto a petri dish, and out of them, your doctor will see what grows. Now, this theater came to life very much like that. It once was just one hall with a few people running around, pulling the strings, but over time, it grew and expanded in a sort of unplanned way, kind of like mold. It took over space after space, which I will soon show you. And the resulting structure might not be the prettiest, newest, or shiniest, but it certainly is alive. Now, if you'll follow me this way, when guests enter Tmuna, they walk down this gangplank. This foyer is usually home to visual arts. Now, many cultural institutions like to separate between performance and visual arts, but Tmuna is a home to all creations. Over here, you can see this intriguing piece by Roy Fabian. I believe this is an aerial image of the building from a bird's eye view, superimposed onto a mirror. It's really quite dazzling, isn't it? Now, over this way, if you're tired, you can just take a seat on this sofa. It's quite comfortable. And we head back here. Now, most guests don't get to go past this door. If we imagine that the theater is a living, breathing body, then in here is the brains. Let's have a look. This is their Oval Office. The programmers, artistic directors, and producers hole up in here to make plans for the future of the theater. Each person has their own desk, which you can see. At this time, the office is undergoing some renovations. You may notice the mold, which will soon be painted over. And these, well, anyway, shall we continue? Up these stairs is the personal office of Ilan Rosenthal, who's the co-founder and co-owner of Tmuna. Up here we find a little gem, the surveillance suite. There are cameras, in fact, in each and every space in the theater, including in the dressing room, a fact many artists do not know. So if you thought you were quite alone when you were performing here getting dolled up and ready, you weren't. Someone was watching. Now, one of the things I like best about Tmuna is that there are lots of secret passageways. Over here, we find our first. This hallway leads us behind one of the performance spaces, which we'll visit soon, straight to the artist's room. This is the space where performers can get ready, have a chat, run lines, put on makeup, and even have a shower. There's a bathroom suite over there. Let's look. It seems quite a few cockroaches have met their end over the past 2 months. Now here's the bathroom suite with the shower. It's not very large, but I hear the water pressure is just wonderful. Now also, in this room we can find the presence of visual art. I don't want to speak for the artist's intention, but that over there, that head and hands, might be a comment on the state of artists in modern-day Israel. Now, through here, is yet another dressing room. Storage space for costumes of previous productions. Mirrors. This seems to belong to a production called Out of Space. Sounds groovy. And back this way, yet another warehouse/storage space. Now, I was told that recently a very clever young man broke in through here, lifted the aluminum roof, cut a hole in the wall, and gained access to a store next door. That man managed to sneak away with 50,000 shekels, which he stole from that store in the middle of the night. You could say that the theater was his accomplice in that act. Oh, I think we've got a live one. Maybe not. Through here, is the cycle. This is the heart of the theater. It's the innermost room. And it was once part of a discotheque. Over there in the corner, you can see the stage that go-go dancers would get up on and wiggle for the crowd. And back here, a very peculiar room. I can hardly imagine what this was used for, but I bet it was very interesting. Now, this is yet another one of those secret passageways I mentioned earlier. You know, it would probably be fun to play hide and seek here. If it wasn't so creepy. Back here we can find more stored items like this tree structure and trash can. There's also a washroom that performers use before they go on stage, equipped with a library. And a mirror to have a last look before meeting the audience. And here we are in the parking lot. This is where the largest and most exciting performances take place in the theater. It's called the parking lot because it once was just that, a parking lot. When the theater was established, cars used to be parked here. But then those cars were replaced by an outdoor stage. Over time, the directors realized that the heat of the summer months made it impossible for audiences to focus on the performances they were seeing. And so 4 walls and a roof were erected. Shall we press on? Now, if the office we saw is the Oval, then this is the West Wing. Back here is where technical equipment is stored and where the technical director has his private office. Here we find the nuts and bolts of this operation. And yet another surveillance station. This camera focuses on the exit from the theater. So if audiences thought that when they left they weren't being watched, they were wrong. At Tmuna, someone is always watching. Now from here, we can head to the bar. The bar was once part of a factory that made heels for ladies' shoes. As a shoe fan myself, I find that bit of information sweet and interesting. Over here is the door to the kitchen. And the waitress station. In the bar, there is alcohol and food, ice cream, and even edamame served, and the waitresses gather here to put in the orders. One of them even left her water bottle. I wonder if she'll be coming back for it. Behind me are the men's restrooms, but in order to find the ladies, we'll have to walk through the entire room. Now, the ladies' restroom is one of my favorite spots in the theater. It's spacious and has room for little details such as this corner. Very important to have a place to keep your extra toilet paper and paper towels. And this very secret door. Most people don't even notice it, but this is an incredibly important location in Tmuna. In here are all of the electrical fuses and switches. It is the control center. And if anything were to happen in here, we would all be left in the dark. Now, since the theater isn't active as it once was, the directors have found new ways of reaching out to their loyal audience base. You can see here a digital station for virtual performative events. Over the last few weeks, a number of different artists have made their way here to Tmuna to host a variety of different events. Over there is the setup of, I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna get the name right, but I think it's something like Simha, who hosts local artists for interviews. It's a really fascinating program. I urge you to watch it. Now let's take a moment to consider this sign. Tmuna Kids. They say that the future of culture and the arts is with the young audience, and that building a young audience base will ensure that culture and performance will be vital going forward for our society. So Tmuna has made an enormous effort to reach out to young children. I've even brought my own here to see performances. They were unusual, but gave us a lot to talk about over dinner. In here, yet another secret chamber. When the theater first opened, the switches and outlets for the dimmers were put in here. Over time, as the theater's activities expanded, more and more outlets and cables and dimmers were added. It's really a wonder of modern electricity that this all manages to work. And back here, musical equipment, drum kits, a carpet, music stands, really what have you is kept here. All the things that make the brilliant performances that happen here possible. And in the corner, records of previous performances. It may look disorganized, but I assure you, it's all very perfectly put in place. I think we can even see binders there from performances dating back to 1988. Because our past is our present, and our present is our future. Up these stairs, you can really get a good look at what's going on in the bar. Sometimes I like to just stand up here and see all the people drinking and talking, discussing the performances they're about to see or have seen recently. Through here, the sweetest of the performance spaces. This is the amphi. Now, you may have heard or seen on the news that the natural world is encroaching upon our cities all over the world. There are goats roaming the streets of Wales and penguins waddling around in the cities of South Africa, and so too at Tmuna. The animal kingdom is taking its claim. Whereas the cats and rats and roaches once kept a healthy distance from the crowds, now, with this quiet, they've made their way back. If we listen carefully, we might even hear a cat fight overhead. Perhaps they're having a heated discussion during their own rehearsals of an upcoming production. Perhaps it's even a musical. And though you can't smell it at home, it seems that one of our furry friends has met the end of its life here. The smell is really quite overpowering. To me, it's a reminder that where there's life, there's also death. The life cycle is with us with every breath we take. And with that thought, I'd like to bid you good night. Thank you for coming on this tour with me. And remember that, in my eyes, you artists are always essential. Thank you.